Imagine boarding a plane on Christmas Eve. You take your seat. You look out the window. Maybe you're excited to see family. Maybe you're thinking about the holidays. Everything feels completely normal. Then, a few hours later, your airplane is struck by lightning. The aircraft explodes in midair. And somehow, you survive. Not only do you survive the fall from thousands of feet above the earth, you wake up alone in one of the most dangerous rainforests in the world. No food, no rescue team, no idea where you are. Just endless jungle stretching in every direction. It sounds impossible. But this is the true story of Juliane Koepcke, the girl who fell from the sky. The year was 1971. 17-year-old Juliane Koepcke lived in Peru with her parents. Unlike most teenagers, Juliane had grown up surrounded by nature. Her parents were zoologists who operated a research station deep in the Amazon rainforest. She spent much of her childhood learning about animals, plants, and jungle survival. At the time, she probably had no idea those lessons would one day save her life. On December 24th, Juliane and her mother arrived at an airport in Lima. Their destination was the city of Pucallpa, where Juliane's father was waiting for them. Christmas was only hours away. The airport was crowded. Many people were traveling to celebrate the holiday with family. Juliane and her mother boarded Lanza Flight 508. The aircraft lifted into the sky and headed east toward the Amazon basin. At first, everything seemed routine. Passengers relaxed in their seats. Flight attendants moved through the cabin. Outside the windows, towering clouds began forming in the distance. Few people on board realized they were flying toward a massive storm. As the plane continued its journey, the weather became worse. Dark clouds surrounded the aircraft. Lightning flashed outside the windows. Turbulence shook the cabin. Passengers began looking around nervously. The aircraft bounced through the storm. Then things got even worse. A brilliant flash lit up the sky. According to later investigations, the plane was struck by lightning. Moments later, disaster unfolded. The aircraft began breaking apart in midair. Seats tore loose. Luggage flew through the cabin. The structure of the plane started to fail. Panic erupted. People screamed. Everything happened within seconds. Juliane later remembered hearing her mother calmly say, "This is the end." Then the aircraft completely disintegrated. Suddenly, Juliane was no longer inside a plane. She was falling through the sky, still strapped to her seat, thousands of feet above the Amazon rainforest. Imagine looking down and seeing nothing but jungle beneath you, an endless green ocean of trees, and you're falling directly toward it. Most people would assume survival was impossible, and normally they would be right. Yet somehow, Juliane remained alive. Researchers still debate exactly why. One theory suggests that the cluster of seats she remained attached to acted like a crude parachute, slowing her descent. Another possibility is that the dense rainforest canopy helped absorb some of the impact. Whatever happened, the odds were almost beyond belief. Far below, the Amazon rainforest rushed upward. Then everything went black. When Juliane regained consciousness, she was lying on the forest floor. At first, she didn't understand what had happened. Her injuries were serious. She had a broken collarbone. Deep cuts covered parts of her body. One eye was swollen nearly shut. She suffered a concussion. Yet somehow, she was alive. Around her was wreckage from the aircraft. Pieces of metal hung from trees. Debris was scattered across the jungle. But there was no sign of rescue teams, no sign of other survivors, no sign of her mother. Juliane was completely alone. Most people in that situation would panic. The Amazon rainforest is one of the most challenging environments on Earth. Venomous snakes, dangerous insects, dense vegetation, extreme heat and humidity. Even experienced explorers can become lost within hours. But Juliane remembered the lessons she had learned growing up. And those lessons gave her a plan. Juliane knew one important rule about surviving in the rainforest. Water leads to people. Small streams flow into larger streams. Larger streams eventually lead to rivers, and rivers often lead to settlements. Instead of wandering aimlessly, she searched for moving water. Eventually, she found a small stream. Then she began following it. Day after day, she walked through the jungle, sometimes wading through water, sometimes climbing over fallen trees, sometimes pushing through dense vegetation. She had almost no supplies. At one point, she found a small bag of candy among the wreckage. That became one of her only food sources. The rainforest constantly challenged her. Insects covered her wounds. The heat was exhausting. The isolation was overwhelming. And every night, the sounds of the jungle echoed around her. Yet she kept moving. Because stopping meant giving up. One day passed, then 2, then 3. Still no rescue. Juliane continued following the water. She remembered her father's advice. Never leave the stream. Eventually, the stream became larger, then larger still. By now, she had been alone for over a week. Her injuries were becoming worse. Some of her wounds were infected. She was physically exhausted, but she refused to quit. Then, on the 9th day, everything changed. Juliane discovered a small boat tied near a shelter along the river. For the first time since the crash, she found evidence of other people. Nearby, she located a container of fuel. One of her wounds had become infested with maggots. Remembering a method used by locals, she carefully poured fuel into the wound. The painful treatment forced many of the parasites out. Then she waited. Eventually, local lumber workers returned to the area. At first, they were stunned. A teenage girl suddenly appeared from the rainforest. Dirty, injured, and claiming she had fallen from a plane. It sounded impossible, but it was true. The workers helped Juliane reach safety. Soon, she was transported for medical treatment. Rescue teams eventually confirmed her identity. The shocking reality became clear. Out of all 92 people aboard Lanza, Flight 508, Juliane Koepcke was the only survivor. The crash became one of the most extraordinary survival stories ever documented. Investigators later concluded that severe weather and lightning played major roles in the disaster. For Juliane, the emotional journey was far from over. She learned that her mother had not survived the crash. The tragedy would stay with her forever. Yet despite everything, she endured. She had survived a fall from the sky, a plane crash, and 9 days alone in one of the world's most unforgiving environments. Many survival stories seem unbelievable. This one almost sounds fictional. Yet every major part of it really happened. A teenager fell from a disintegrating airplane. She survived. Then she navigated the Amazon rainforest alone. And she found her way back to civilization. Years later, Juliane dedicated much of her life to science, following in the footsteps of her parents. She would eventually return to study the very rainforest that had both threatened and protected her. Her story remains one of the rarest survival cases ever recorded. A reminder that knowledge, determination, and an extraordinary amount of luck can sometimes overcome impossible odds. Because on Christmas Eve in 1971, a plane fell from the sky. But somehow, one passenger didn't, and her survival became one of the most remarkable stories in history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like and subscribe for more incredible true stories from history.